Ladies and gentlemen, or the two and a half listeners that classically listen to our podcast. Neil, we might actually have 3.5 listeners now. I'm not sure if we managed to upgrade to that point, but I've had a few people over the past week or two mention that they regularly listen to the pod, which, you know, it feels good and it's great. Yeah, I don't know how to take it sometimes when I'm like surprised actually that people listen to our podcast, because it's rubbish, let's be honest. Well, it's not rubbish, that's not true. I think we've actually got quite a good thing going, but you kind of don't expect it, given we just started it, because it's a bit of fun and a bit of enjoyment and a bit of a conversation. But yeah, we are quite underprepared for this one, I think, given I think Neil's hungover again for a podcast, which is quite funny, and I've just had like the busiest week going, I think, since going back to sort of the freelance aspect of things. So it's just been a case of trying to crowbar this stuff into our lives and figure out, you know, when can we put a podcast in? Because you'd think that, you know, 1 hour in a day deal wouldn't be that difficult for us to be able to put together some sort of conversation, would you?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been challenging this past like 3 or 4 weeks. And when you mentioned the podcast being rubbish, I don't think it's rubbish, but maybe after this episode, we'll see how it goes.
Well, yeah. I don't mean rubbish. I mean rubbish in a self-deprecating fashion, where, you know, it's the podcast itself. I always have to remind it that it's fundamentally a conversation between the two of us, and we started it because it would just be a good thing to do, to capture our lives, to capture some sort of, like, I don't know, story about what we've been up to, where we've been, because, you know, I think if that one new listener is listening and is wondering what the heck this podcast is about, it's always been about trying to, for our grandkids, to listen to their grandparents and great-grandparents having a chat about something. You know, that there's no time in our lives we've ever been able to do this, is there, Neil?
Yeah, I know. And like, if I look back and if I could see our grandparents or great-grandparents on a video or on a podcast, I think it'd be priceless. Like hearing their stories and what life was like. And
it would be, because, you know, the fact that we are the sum, we're like the sum of loads of, like, I don't know what the number is, but it's a ridiculous piece of luck that we're sat here doing this right now. You know, if you think of the amount of people that have had to come before us for us to be sat here doing this, it's mad. And, you know, I just think it's a really nice thing to be able to do, you know, because documenting your life, although it's not necessarily for, like, because you get kind of like, what I've found is people are like, oh, you know, they'll take the mick out of me for like recording with a camera or like talking to it or putting things out on the internet or whatever it might be. But realistically, like, I've never regretted filming something or taking a picture or recording a podcast. Like, I've never regretted it.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like that?
No, I'd agree. And yeah, putting yourself out there is a bit uncomfortable and can be a bit embarrassing at times. But when you look back and you think, yeah, you're not embarrassed. You don't feel ashamed of it. You don't feel, I think when you look at the end product, especially the 40 episodes we've done, I think looking back, it's awesome to say, yeah, we've done 40 episodes. And we've captured all that content and like done ones in London Bridge, done ones in the bakery where Rebecca works. And like those like moments are pretty special.
Yeah, I remember when we were in Kenya before this whole pandemic kicked in. It was literally just before it. I had my big old camera and I was taking loads of pictures. I was taking loads of pictures of, like, there was a leopard or something there. And there was a group that we were with that we knew, they were family friends. And Dave, one of them, said to me, do you ever think that it's like overtaking your experience? So me stood there taking pictures, you know, do you ever feel like you're lacking in the experience because you're intent on taking pictures? And I wasn't sure how to answer that, because part of me knows that I've never regretted taking pictures or videos. But at the same time, you're not in the moment to some extent. But then equally, when I look back on the pictures, it reminds me of the moment. I don't know, like, do you have that conflict? Because obviously when you want to capture a moment of Isla doing something or the boys doing something or you doing something, do you ever think, oh, I should be present rather than capturing this thing?
Yeah, and I kind of go through peaks and troughs of capturing lots and lots of stuff and then capturing nothing. So now I've got my shiny new phone. I feel like I'm capturing a lot more. And I kind of enjoy that because on Apple anyway, you can get like a little widget thing that pulls up photos from years ago. And when you take lots of photos every week or every day, the memories you get, like when you look back over the years, is just awesome. But in the moment, I think there's probably a part of me that's like, should I just put my phone down? And like, I'm with friends and stuff. I was on a night out with work colleagues on Wednesday. Didn't take any photos, but like now I look back and think, oh, I should have captured that. I should have, like, these guys I work with them every day, and yeah, there's parts of me that I wish I do capture more, but then there's parts of me that thinks I should enjoy it. And interestingly, when I went to see Coldplay a few weeks ago, lead singer basically said for these next 2 or 3 songs, he wants all the phones away. He wants nobody to have their phone out. And he was speaking to like 70,000 people, and he just wanted to make it intimate. And yeah, and I saw no phones. So everyone seemed to listen, and I don't know, it made it a bit more special. It was nice.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a happy medium, right? There's definitely like a middle ground where you take the picture at the start of the meal and then you put your phone away.
Yeah,
yeah. It's I'll capture just a couple of pictures of the kids playing or running around or doing something, and then for the rest of the day I don't necessarily need to. You don't need to be walking around with like a GoPro attached to your forehead. But then, some part of me, because I did that vlogging thing for 210 days straight, it forced and like pushed me to do stuff. It was like I had to make something good for the vlog, which made me, contact someone I hadn't spoken to in a while, or go on an adventure, because whereas normally I just would have like slotted into the usual work thing that I would have done and just grafted away and not really thought about it. So I guess there's part of that. And it's like, as well, photography to some extent, pushes me to want to go and take pictures at times of the day or night or in locations that I wouldn't have normally thought of. So yeah, I don't know. It was a meandering thought that I had while we were going through this. But either way, Neil, we always start off with, as part of this podcast, we always start off with the how we use. So given we've had a busy week and you are hungover once again on the Developing Dads podcast, how's your week been?
Yeah, but I was reflecting on the week just 5 minutes before the call. And probably a side note, if whoever's listening, I have 3 kids downstairs. Rebecca's away on a hen do all weekend, so I'm currently multitasking, looking after 3 kids and doing a podcast. So there might.
What a guy you are, Neil. I mean, if there were mums and dads out there in the world, they should be looking upon you right now as an absolute deity.
So if my door opens behind me, then you might see a ginger-haired girl or 2 little boys come through. We'll see. Anyway, how's my week? It's been really good. It's been a short week. Obviously, the Queen's funeral on Monday, and I don't work Fridays, so I had a 3-day week, which was nice. A couple of colleagues came up from London for a few days, which meant a night out on Wednesday, which went to a new place in Edinburgh called Bohemia, which is really good. Nice food, and it was quite a late one. And then I went back into the office on Thursday. So, I mean, this whole week's it's gone really fast. It's been really enjoyable, but it's been very alcohol infused. Because yesterday I went to a local beer festival in Dunfermline, which had 47 different beers from like 10 different breweries, all like around the central belt of Scotland. So really nice, actually. Like there's a booklet you got when you went in, and you could choose which beers, you could have tastes of them all, and really good. So I did that with a fellow dad friend, James, for it was like 4 or 5 hours we were out. And yeah, really, really nice. Only kind of thing I would say is the beer was warm, which I'm not a massive fan of warm beer. But it was just it was coming out of kegs like straight out of kegs. So
I mean, there's I think you must get it in Scotland, but you've got English ale down here, which just comes out of the cellar, like it's cellar temperature.
Yeah,
it's not ice cold.
Yeah,
I don't mind that.
It's still really enjoyable. And then our mum took my kids for the afternoon, so I had to come home and look after three kids, a bit drunk. And thankfully, James was going to put his kids down and then come back to mine for a few whiskies, but thankfully he was a bit too tired, and we decided not to, because I would have been in a lot worse state just now if James had come over with the kids sleeping. Apart from that, it's been, a fast week. Lots of socialising. Today's plans, what am I doing today? I don't know, actually. There's not much planned. Rebecca's coming back later on this afternoon. So she's entertaining three kids hungover.
Excellent. So she's going to be hungover as well, is she? So she's going to have 2 hungover parents. It sounds like you're doing a great job, Neil.
Yeah. Interestingly, James's wife is a social worker. It just
Excellent.
puts a funny spin on it because for the 2.5 listeners that are listening, I'm not an alcoholic and I don't drink a lot, and I look after my children just in case someone's listening.
just to clarify, you're not neglecting your kids.
Yeah. Anyway, how's your week been, Gordon? You've been busy.
Yeah. Busy, yes. So, yeah, we had the old Queen's funeral. Not that I had anything to do with it whatsoever. I wasn't invited, obviously.
Not queue for 25 hours.
I did not take up that queue. I mean, I don't necessarily have the opinions that I think Neil perhaps carries to do with the monarchy and the Queen and all that kind of thing. But I equally feel like, the 10, 15, 20 hours or whatever it was that some people were queuing for, I just feel a bit kind of like, couldn't you have just used that time for better? Like for something better than queuing for, like, sure, there's a moment in history, but, it's not... I don't know. I felt uncomfortable with the fact that people were spending, committing so much time and resources to something when, I'm sure the Queen would have probably preferred you to spend those 15 hours spread over the course of 1 hour for the next 3 or 4 months helping a charity or, teaching someone something, or, I don't know, spending it with your family. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I just felt a bit uncomfortable about it. I don't know why, but it's just a bit weird that people wanted to queue for that long to see.
I can't fathom, I just can't put myself in those people's shoes.
Yeah, because I had to go to... Where was I going? Yeah, I was going up to Birmingham, actually, on this Saturday and Sunday before the Queen's laying in state finished. Lying in state, whatever it's called. And it was early morning as well. I was in the Euston train station for about 6 a.m, something like that. But there was people obviously coming back from doing their night shift, having done the queuing thing. And I was just kind of like, there were having discussions about it, but there was a lot of people. And it was just, I don't know, I just felt a bit weird about it. But yeah, no, I've had a crazy week. So yeah, I've done 7 days. I worked 7 days in a row. So I went up Saturday and Sunday to Birmingham, like I said, which was for a business that I'm invested in called the PT Project, which helps helps basically educate personal trainers more down the niche of things like biomechanics, so helping them with their clients and their movement and all that kind of stuff. So that was really good. It was a successful camp. It was a hypertrophy camp. Had 14 or 15 people on it. It sold out. And then we've got this mentorship thing that's launching soon. That sold out. So I was filming for that, taking pictures, doing all some bits and pieces. And then on the Sunday afternoon, I was at a bodybuilding show. So it was a regional bodybuilding show that I was filming for a chap, which is pretty good. It's kind of like a bodybuilding. Bodybuilding's weird because they're huge. Natural bodybuilding now is massive. Like, it's huge. And I think it's definitely the rise of sort of social media and things helped that. So some of the classes, there was about 130 athletes or something at these.
Wow.
And,
so I've been to a few shows with you.
Yeah, and given, back in the day when I was competing, 100 or so max, maybe 70 to 100 athletes overall. So the shows are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's obviously lots of new faces, but there's still some old guard kicking around, like my age, who I competed with back in 2008, 2009, some 14, 15 years ago. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. And they're still involved in the whole bodybuilding thing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I probably could still be involved in that type of thing. It's not really necessarily my thing anymore.
I wonder why you transitioned out of it. Why do you think you moved?
Because it's hard, Neil. Like, I think I got to the point in my mind where I was just like, what's the point? What is the point of this?
The gain versus the cost.
Yeah, because even there was always that chasing of that feeling that I got when I won my first ever competition. When I won my first ever competition, it was probably one of the best feelings I've ever had. It's up there with my top 5 feelings I think I've experienced. And it's hard to replicate that. So if you can't replicate it from other things, then you just go chasing after that thing that ultimately resulted in what you did, how you managed to get that feeling. So competing in bodybuilding again and trying to win and trying to win again and trying to win again. But then it just came to the point where I was just like, it's not, like, I'm okay with not winning anymore. I'm okay with not, being a professional natural bodybuilder. I rationally can't see how it really benefits me beyond how I look and people tell me.
Yeah.
A bit of selfishness, I mean, business-wise, it did help me, but then equally, like, did people sign up because I was a natural bodybuilder? No, that wasn't really my niche. You know, it wasn't people that I initially worked with. So I guess I just transitioned away because it's just hard, Neil, like really hard. You know, it's not something that it's just hard. So I was just like, nah. Benefit doesn't weigh in. I'm enjoying a nice coffee, actually. We got some beans from, for those who are listening on podcasts, I'm having a coffee. And we got our beans from Square Mile. So the
nice.
James Hoffman.
Have you been to visit yet?
I have not. It is not easy to get to.
Miles away, yeah. You keep telling that.
This is the thing. This is the thing that a lot of Londoners don't, or people who are not Londoners don't understand. And equally, people who are not from London also don't understand, because we might travel an hour and a half to go for a coffee, or to go for dinner, or to go for lunch. Neil, would you drive to Glasgow just for dinner?
No, not a chance.
No, but that's basically what we're doing, right? So, going to that Square Mile thing is quite the trek, certainly from where I live. So I haven't been yet, but I do. But in fact, next to Ali's office, which I'll get to in a minute, is what I've been doing all week. Ali's office is his Proof Rock coffee.
I didn't know he had a different brand.
Yeah, so he's got Square Mile, which is his coffee roaster thing, but he's got a coffee shop called Proof Rock, and it's in Farringdon. And if you watched his James Hoffman's latest YouTube video, he imported what's it called? An antique coffee machine from Italy.
Wow.
And he's also roasted some Italian beans specifically for this coffee machine, and it's at Proof Rock. So if you actually eventually come down to London, we might be able to go and have an Italian brew.
Yeah, that sounds good. So anyway,
so that was the weekend.
Ali?
Yeah, that was the weekend. So I did the PT project stuff, then I did the bodybuilding thing, and then on Monday to Friday this week, we filmed 15 podcasts.
Oh my God.
So basically these things, right, but they're longer. You know, he talks for about 2 hours. They have conversation for 2 hours. So we did 15 of them, majority of them in person. So I was obviously in charge of the production aspect of things. So I was like all the filming and whatnot. And that was just, that was hardcore. It was kind of hardcore because it's like the podcast stuff is like it's super easy when it's set up, Neil. It's super easy, right? You know, when it all works, you're basically just sat there monitoring. You're just making sure that it's working, right? But when it's not set up and you need to like work out some logistics for stuff, it's like 3 or 4 cameras. It's audio. It's making sure all the data's backed up and put onto like the Google Drive. It's making sure memory cards are cleared. It's managing guests. Like it was pretty hardcore. So there was a lot of concentrating and swearing, but I got through it.
How does Ali do it? Like, I can't imagine having a 2-hour conversation, really in-depth stuff, and then move to another 2-hour conversation, then another 2-hour conversation, and...
But you do, though, don't you? Like, you do that in meetings.
Yeah, true. But I guess he's performing a little bit.
Yeah, there is that, but you just get on with it. You know, you have a coffee and you just crack on. And granted...
He's got his researchers, probably, giving him...
Yeah, so there's research, right? So there's a researcher, the producer, who basically comes up with all the stuff for the guests. And then he can just refer to that and ask questions around it. So it's not I wouldn't say it's that hard, but it worked. And we got all the podcasts done because one of the things with the podcast, especially with the studio setup that was there, is that the studio setup needs to be very chameleon. So it needs to be very much in a sense of a podcast studio or a YouTube set or whatever else. You're constantly having to set up and break down, and the setup takes about an hour, and the breakdown takes about half an hour. So we'd have like days where it would be a podcast and a YouTube video. So I'd have to like break down, set up, move everything around, like manage all the data, yada yada yada. So now it was just a case of we just focus on podcast week, done. And that's like basically 2 seasons, all filmed, all organized, all set up, which is great.
Yeah. You're still there?
You still there?
Yeah.
No, yeah, cut out for a little bit. Who cares? And that was all set up and all done. So that was basically my week, just doing all that, meeting some really quite interesting guests, which was kind of good. There's a guy called Casper Lee, He is an original YouTuber, if you will, from back in the day. Fascinating how he's kind of like changed direction in some form, where he quit YouTube sort of 3 years ago, and now he's got like an influencer business, he's got a marketing business, he's got a venture capitalist business, and then he just does that now, which is amazing. You know, a couple of million subs on Instagram, and then 6 or 7 million subscribers on YouTube, and doesn't even post on there anymore. And yeah, that was kind of interesting meeting him, listening to him. There was a company called 8 Sleep, so their founders were in chatting about it, and 8 Sleep, it sounds like it's amazing. 8 Sleep is basically a mattress cover, not the mattress, a cover, that basically helps you regulate like temperature and stuff. So it pumps water around this mattress thing to heat it up and cool it down. It'll track your movements, your sleep patterns, all sorts of stuff. And you can get them for 2 people as well. So you basically have like one mattress that's separated. So if you want it with your wife, for example, and you're sleeping next to each other, you can have like hot and cold either side.
Wow.
If you really wanted. Anyway, it seemed really cool. Like, I'd love to buy one, but they're $2,500
for the mattress topper thing.
It's not. It's a mattress topper. Yeah, it's basically, it goes on the mattress. So you still have to buy the bed, you still have to buy the mattress, and it's $2,500. So it's a great idea. Like, it's brilliant, but flipping heck, you know, it's quite a lot of cash for a mattress topper. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So what have you been up to at the weekend? This weekend just passed.
This weekend, yesterday we've been tussling with the floor, haven't we, Neil? You know, dad life stuff, tussling with the floor, trying to get that laid. So there was some chaps came over yesterday to do some feathering. You know, whatever that means, no idea. But they feathered away and obviously created more dust for us to tidy up, which was great. Laura's mum and dad were over helping us. Like, we're trying to get the garden like some kind of semblance of, like, you know, it looks okay and it works. So we're just kind of working on that, and they've had their driveway done, so we've stolen some bits and pieces from them. They had new turf laid, so we had some turf left over, so we used that. We put some new fence panels, so very dad life on the fence panel front, and then cooked them dinner. So I got the big green egg out, which, if for those who have not listening, it's a ceramic barbecue thing. You've had something off my big green egg, haven't you?
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. I did some salmon. So salmon with, like, it's got shallots, some herbs, some lemon, and then you just put it in for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes at 110, and it just makes a nice, like, kind of smokyish, salmonish thing. And then I also did some roast potatoes on it as well. So it had the nice crispy outside, fluffy on the inside. It was absolutely delicious. We had that for dinner. Had some drinks as well. had a bottle of wine and some beers. Found some beers in Tesco's by Brew by Numbers. Some DDH. Are you a DDH fan?
That's quite dark, isn't it?
No, DDH is like what's DDH? I'm on my computer. I could probably do it. DDH beer. What does it mean? It is double dry hopped. So basically, as with so many things pertaining to beer, particularly those of IPA variety, DDH is more complicated than it looks. Blah blah blah. It's just a bit more complicated. It tends to be quite cloudy beer.
Oh, okay.
Which it's like kind of a bit fruitier. It's a bit. I actually really I love it. But basically, I had it with David in Fremont in Seattle, and he was like, "This is really nice beer." So I wanted to find him another DDH, and
nice.
I love it. So I found one in Tesco's, and he really really enjoys it. So I got him some more of that. So we had some of them, and then we did a little whiskey tasting with him. So he likes a bit of whiskey, and we tried. Laura bought me for my wedding present is a whiskey called Phenomenology by Compass Box. Have you tried it yet, Neil? Oh yeah, it's about 150 quid, 200 quid a bottle. So Laura got me a fancy bottle of that. So me and David had a few drinks of that. It's not quite finished yet. It's still sitting there. So we're still savouring it. And then we had a Ben Rhine, and we had a Aldi special, the Murdoch thing. It's about 10 quid a bottle or whatever it was, but it's very tasty. So it was good.
Nice.
We had a few different ones. And then today is kind of today. It's like we've got I'm sure it's going to be lovely, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it, Neil. But we've got to go and do one of those kind of like 1 year catch up bumping baby in the park. Neil's rubbing his forehead if anyone's watching on YouTube. And yeah, that's so in a park, go and see all the baby and bump people. There's loads of people already pulled out, as you can imagine. It was, booked in the diary 4 months ago. So I'm not the organizer of it. And I was kind of in this debate, and I don't know how you feel about these kind of things, Neil. And I say it's kind of funny because it's not. These are people that I don't necessarily hang around with like all the time, And that's not to say they're not nice people. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's just like one of those things where you're kind of making small talk to some extent. You kind of know each other. You kind of don't. It's all that kind of stuff, right? So, and it's just that kind of like that awkwardness that you have to go through and do and whatever else. And there's a never-ending list of stuff that you want to do that's not that specifically.
Yeah, I mean, time's finite, especially when you're a dad.
Yeah. However, Laura said yes that we would go to the park thing, and I hate people that say yes to something and then like cancel either last minute or cancel or whatever else. I'd rather be the person that just says no up front. Yeah. Rather than the person that cancels, because I think saying no up front is a much less dickish thing to do than cancelling last minute or whatever else. So I don't know how you combat that, but I just I'm like, I've got so many other things that I could potentially do or that would be more productive or require more of my attention and time. So it's that toss up where Laura's like, we don't have to go, and I'm like, no, we said we're going to go, we're going. So. How do you battle those things?
Yeah, they're few and far between now, but an example was a birthday I went to a couple of weeks ago. It was more Rebecca's side. I know them, but again, there's dads and couples there that lovely people, but I don't really know them, don't really have an inkling to meet them on a Sunday evening having a barbecue. But yeah, you just got to suck it up and do it. Kids had a great time, so it's kind of, I don't know, you've got to be a bit forgiving in terms of the kids are going to have a great time. Rebecca wants me to go with her. I just need to suck it up and do it. And there's probably other times where I've just said no, or been that person that you hate and maybe last minute said no. But I feel like I'm in a part of my life now where I don't get asked anymore whether that's I say no too much, but
because they know you're a bit of a dick and you don't turn up.
Yeah, and like it's that age-old thing where I can count on one hand, or probably less than one hand, how many close friends and close people I want to spend a day with, or a weekend with, or an evening with, and I'm okay with that. So
then part of me feels like that some of that is you're then just missing out on connections and potential connections. You talked about how, like in the last podcast, I think it was, maybe how much or how good it was to go for that beer that would ultimately benefit you for your career and all that kind of thing. Like that part of me feels like you also just don't know what kind of people are going to be there and what kind of doors. Yeah. And there's an infinite amount of things you can potentially do, and exactly like you say, you've got to narrow your focus and be like, well, is this something that will actually benefit me in some? You have to be selfish and think of that way, I guess. But when I was at the Brewdog cycle thing a few episodes ago, I met an executive vice president from Ernst & Young, which is a big financial guy. And like, I don't know, he probably wouldn't remember my name, but I spent most of the day with him, chatting to him, had beers together and stuff like that. So, like, you don't know where that'll lead. Like, would I see him at the AGM next year in Brewdog and then add him on LinkedIn or something? So yeah, there is that. But then I'm quite fulfilled. I'm quite content with the people around me. And but then in business, Neil, the amount of times that I tell people that are younger than me that have started their new careers or started their new businesses or whatever they're doing, I learned the lessons. I think I did have to learn a lesson from it, but I know that it was better to market when I didn't need to market myself.
Yeah.
When things were going really well, that's the time that you need to be producing content and doing stuff. Not when the times when you don't have any mates and nobody's want to talk to you. So it's like managing your mental health. Like going and getting a therapist when you're super happy is probably a better time than when you're super sad.
Yeah, and like similarly, if you get made redundant or you lose your job, I mean, I'm quite good at keeping my LinkedIn up to date and engaging with kind of subject matter experts and people of the same kind of level as me. And if I was ever to be made redundant, I know that I can generally find a job quite quickly because I keep those things up to date. I keep those connections live. I might not meet up with them for drinks and coffee all the time, but I wish them happy birthday through LinkedIn, or if they get a new job, I'll say congratulations, or I just keep that kind of ticking over because I know in the long run it's probably going to help me.
So then why don't you do that for when it comes to your personal relationships?
I do, but just there's a small handful of people that I do it with.
Okay, that's fair enough. So yeah, I've got that baby and bump thing. And then that's pretty much the weekend done. I'm looking after next week's going to be good. Again, busy. We've got Monday, I've got Olivia all day, so I've got daddy daycare, and then I'm working with Ali on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday it's Laura's birthday. So nice. just a reminder, Neil, it's Laura's birthday. Just if you want to send a card.
Do you want to see? I've actually got in my to-do list Gordon Greenhorn.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, the top one.
There we go, Laura's birthday. Yeah, so it's Laura's birthday. It's 30 plus 1. She was obviously pregnant with Olivia, or just had Olivia when she had her 30th birthday. And we did a really cool thing. Well, I think it was really cool. I mean, I organised it. But I took her to Duck and Waffle, and we sat by the window and had a lovely kind of a rather expensive breakfast, brunchy type of thing. But it was up in like the Heron Tower, and it's all very it's nice, but it's silly expensive. And then we went to go and get some jewellery, so we bought like some pearl thing that she really wanted, and we just had a lovely day. And it was a bit different because obviously we had Olivia and she was only 8 weeks old or something like that. And then this time I was like, nah, we're going to do something really nice. And I was looking at kind of going abroad, but the prices of like flying anywhere is insane.
Mad. Yeah.
Like go to Portugal, it was about 700 quid return. Like what? So didn't do that. So we're going to go somewhere else. I won't necessarily name it in the pod. We can leave that as a little sprinkling for the next episode potentially. So yeah, we're going to do that, and then that's pretty much my life, Neil. I'm just for some weird reason I'm busy. Which
serving other people, Gordon.
Yeah, I don't know when people work full time, and when I worked full time for 7 or 8 months in an employed setting. I don't know how people have time to do anything. Like how. Because you're in the office, you leave the house at, say, before 8, you get home after 6. Like, what are you going to do pre-leaving and post getting home?
Yeah, I mean, I work from home 90% of the time, so I just walk up to my office and there's no commute time, so that's massive. Like, if you're commuting an hour there, an hour back, that's 2 hours of your day where you could do something different. So just get a job that works from home, Gordon. Stop being behind the camera.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so that's been good. Busy week. But yeah, in the preparedness, I introduced this podcast saying we weren't necessarily prepared for anything, and we haven't. We've managed to burn through 32 minutes worth of content already, which feels
class as content.
It's content. Of course, it's content. Even if you just turn a camera on and put a microphone to your mouth and record it and publish it, then that's content. I was actually kind of pondering, and it was more yesterday and today because basically what I've tried to do is manage and manipulate happiness to some extent, right? So on a bare bones level, I don't take cocaine because that's not a good idea, is it, for long-term happiness? I don't overspend on a credit card and don't pay it off, because then you're just, again, neglecting your future happiness, right? You're going to have to pay that back at some point. What I try to do is to make decisions where I can within my privileges, if you will, that will ultimately contribute towards a level of happiness, or what I think will be some happiness. And for me, those are things like having a good social structure, managing my income and outgoings as much as I can, and having a loving and supporting wife. But basically, moving to where I moved to now, we're a 5-minute walk away from our grandparents, my in-laws, and that choice has resulted in not only me being exceptionally happy, because they can come down, like yesterday they came down, helped us with the garden. They also stayed over for the evening, and they only have to walk home, right? There's no commute of like 45 minutes or 20 minutes here or drive there or whatever else. It's literally a 5-minute walk. And to move here was a choice. We could have moved anywhere else. Like, we had the means and the finances to move anywhere else in London, but we chose here largely because of that. And then it got me sort of pondering. I was like, well, how much of happiness is actually a choice? Like, how much of you feeling good about yourself, feeling happy, how much of that is actually, within your own power, your own choice. I don't know if you had any meandering thoughts about it.
You sound like Mo Gaudat. He's always preaching the happiness of the choice. And yeah, I mean, you can definitely design your life to be more happy, but I guess it takes takes that light bulb moment in terms of if I make this decision now, how's it going to pay in the next 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 month? So I don't know how you develop that future thinking. I don't know how you get people to think about the decisions they're making now and how happy it's going to make them in the future. And that's, I guess, why I run most days, is because I know it makes me happy there and then, but also in the next 10 years, I'll hopefully be happier and not bedbound. I read a lot to try and decompress, listen to a lot of podcasts about mind, mental health, all that kind of stuff. Spend time on my own, spend time with friends. Yeah, you kind of... And I was chatting to James about this goes going quite deep, but my life and how I've kind of fast-tracked it quite quickly. I mean, I had kids when I was 23, married 22. Now I've got 3 kids. I'm 31, and where am I going with this? Yeah, there's a feeling that there's a reason, or I think there might be a reason of why that happened. And is my life going to be shorter than other people's, or something? I don't know why, but yeah, I feel that.
Did you? I don't feel like I questioned whether I was happy for a large part of my 20s. Did you?
Did I? No, I don't think I did.
Dad.
Special guest.
Special guest. Do you want to come and say hello, Isla?
Lewis put boots and cats on the shopping list.
Cats on the shopping list. I've got an Alexa downstairs, and it sounds like Lewis has put some cats on the shopping list.
Oh, excellent. Good to hear it.
So if anyone's watching on YouTube, you'll see my daughter.
Yes. Did you? Yeah, that's a good thing that I wondered. I didn't really sit down and be like, am I happy? I just kind of went with the feeling of being like content and happy in what I was doing. Did you do that?
Yeah.
And then if you didn't, do you think it was a mistake? Do you think you should have sat down and gone, what actually makes me happy? Am I doing things that are making me happy? Should I change direction? Should I not? What did you...
So I don't think there was a kind of a scientific thought process of like, is this making me happy? Yes, no. Then divert or change course. I think I just did stuff because I was happy, and like I think if it made me unhappy, then I wouldn't have done it. But there was no conscious effort to think, is this going to make me happy? Yes or no?
But then if you don't know, because we essentially adapt to our surroundings, right? So we live within our means. Even if we earn £5 million a year, we end up spending £5 million a year. If we earn £5,000 a year, we end up spending £5,000 a year. So if you don't necessarily sit down and go, well, I'm earning £5 million a year, what the hell am I spending my money on? Is this actually making me happy? Same as when I'm spending my time, where I'm doing things, how I'm doing things. If you didn't sit down and go, oh, is this making me happy? Could have you been happier? Because I don't know if I've talked about this in the podcast, but I genuinely thought getting married to Laura, having a good relationship, having a nice house, financially being good, having a good job, I was very happy. I was like, I went traveling for an entire year. I was like, how can I be happier? How do you get happier on this? And then I had a kid, right? And then you're like, holy shit, there's another dimension to happiness. Like there's a whole other bubble. So I don't know if you thought, if you'd gone, am I actually happy? Like actually asked yourself that rather than just running with the overall feeling. Do you think that you would have then delayed things perhaps, or changed course, or actually found like more happiness? What do you think?
Yeah, like for a lot to process there. I didn't think of when I had Isla, married Rebecca. I knew it was the right decision, but I don't think I ever questioned, will it make me happy? I just think I assumed it was going to make me happy, and that assumption paid off. And like, yeah, I guess now going through life, I'm early 30s, and I feel there's probably more reason to think about happiness because there's a lot more things to manage, there's a lot more things to worry about, to look at, to focus on. You're thinking of the future of your kids. You're also thinking of the future of yourself, your pensions, what the markets are doing. Like there's so much as a young adult. Am I a young adult? I don't know. Young dad. There's so much to process and think about. I think that's where it's important to think about happiness, but not necessarily. You don't necessarily need to do that in your early 20s. I don't think, or I didn't feel I needed to.
I'm curious about it because I'm sort of in some setups. I'm kind of surrounded by people, or some people who are kind of on that constant trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And kids are back. I think the seal has been broken on the door. I think they're now definitely wanting to come in.
Yeah, I mean we made it to 40 minutes, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We did well. Are they?
Want to say hello?
No.
No.
No. We could. To be fair, Neil, we could probably pick up this happiness thing in the next podcast. But what do you think? Or shall we continue down this vein?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we've talked about happiness in another podcast. You can't see
We
him.
have, but I guess I was kind of exploring the idea. There he is. Hello. I was exploring the idea basically of if you were to assess your own happiness, should you do it frequently? And if you do, does that mean you're likely going to become happier? And if you don't, then you're in trouble.
This is becoming chaotic now.
My kids are coming in. I think, Neil, let's just call it there because Olivia's trying to come in.
I can't hear you, by the way. Isla, stop it. She's got my earpiece. Here we go. Right, you're back in.
Yeah, I'm just saying that Olivia's trying to come in now as well. So I think we should we'll call this podcast here and we'll pick it up on the next one. How does that sound?
Cool.
Right.
Lewis,
So
do you want to say bye-bye to everybody?
No.
Say bye-bye, Isla.
Bye.
Right.
excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for listening to the 3.5 listeners that have joined us. Neil has now been invaded by at least 2 of his children. I'm being invaded by my other one. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've got all of our usual places: YouTube, Instagram, all those kind of places. Before the carnage doesn't protrude, end up with Neil getting assaulted at some point, then and the camera's been covered up. Excellent. Right, ladies and gents, we shall see you in the next podcast. Cheers.
Right, goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Punky.
What an ending.